What is the meaning of life? I've always wondered about this. So I remember as a child, I was sitting in school all day, and I thought, why? What am I doing here? As an adult, I sit at work all day, and I often think, why? What's the point? As a professor of philosophy, I've had the great privilege of really being able to think about this question for many years. I've gained a lot of student depth, and I have the answer now. So I thought I would share that answer with you tonight. And you're laughing, but I do have the answer. So before I can give it to you, we need to clarify what I'm talking about. So first of all, what do I mean when I ask about the meaning of life? What do I mean by meaning? And I think what I mean is the point. What's the point of going on with this life? This kind of life. And it's not a definition, but I will try to clarify the concept enough so we know what we're talking about. What's the point? In order to understand this concept better, I want to separate it from a couple of things. So, first of all, you might think the meaning of life differs from person to person. You might think that the meaning of life for me is different from you. And there's something to this. This is what we call the meaning in life. It's a subjective notion. So what I experience is meaningful. Getting up in the morning, doing philosophy, creating art, giving great TED Talks. To me, that feels meaningful. But it's a subjective state. It might not feel meaningful to you. So that's a subjective notion of meaning. I'm not going to talk about that. You have to figure that out for yourself, together with friends, family, and a couple of psychologists, I guess. I'm going to talk about the objective notion of meaning. The actual point of going on that you can be wrong about, and that doesn't differ from person to person. It's the same for all of us. So I want to know what the actual point is, not just what you feel or think. A couple of more things to clarify before we move on. And when I ask this question, I'm not asking about what's the cause of us being here, or what's the intention, if any, behind it, or is there a plan behind this life? I'm not asking about that. There might or might not be a plan or an intention. We might come from a random event back in the universe history. We might come from a God who has an intention and a plan. I don't know. What I want to know is whatever caused us to be here today, what's the point, the actual objective point of going on tomorrow and so on from now on? Whatever that plan says, I want to know, is it a good plan? Is that the meaning of life? So I'm not talking about the cause, why we're here. Also, this is a normative concept. So I'm not talking about the meaning of life in the sense of what actually gets you up in the morning and keep going. It's a normative concept. I want to know why we should get up in the morning and keep going. So it's an objective, normative question. And to clarify that a little bit further, it's important to separate meaning from other concepts. So for example, I often hear people say, the meaning of life is to be kind. The meaning of life is to be happy. It's to do good things and so on. That's cool. That might be meaningful, but there are many meaningful things that aren't like that. So these are not the same concept. So let me explain this a little bit. When we're happy, we are in a subjective state of satisfaction or content over a certain period of time. That's what it means to be happy. When we're moral, we behave well towards others and life in general. And all those things are meaningful, I think. But not everything that's meaningful aligns with those things. So let me give you an example. Read biographies of great artists. They're very often deeply immoral people. they're very often deeply unhappy, but they live meaningful lives. I took a test online once, and it turns out, and I can recognize this, it turns out I'm really not that happy. I don't think I'm too immoral, but I'm not happy. And I think that's true. I've never been really happy. I'm always dissatisfied with my situation. I think everything's, I'm not going to say that live, but I think I'm not happy. But I score very high on meaning. So I do what I think is very meaningful things. So if you read up on people, and there's a lot of room for doing and being a meaningful person, but still be unhappy, still be immoral even. So these are not the same concepts. So what I want to know is what's the point of going on? And it doesn't have to be morality, happiness, or other normative concepts. It's a separate concept of its own. Are you with me so far? Good. So that was so much for clarifications. I promised you the answer. So let me just repeat the question. The meaning of life, what that is. What's the meaning of life? By that I mean, what's the objective, actual point for all of us, independently of what you might think and feel, to keep going on? That's what I want to know. And the answer is, let me repeat that. The meaning of life is, are you excited? The meaning of life is, I wonder how long they're going to let me go on here. The meaning of life is to improve things. Now, before you get all worked up on this, let me explain what I mean. More specifically, as long as there's a potential for improvement out there in the world, there's actually a point to get up in the morning and keep on living. That's the theory. I've really worked on this. I've developed this theory. So you should, you should. But I need to clarify a little bit more. So what I mean by this. The cool thing, first of all, the cool thing about this theory is that it's so much meaning out there. There's so much to do that's meaningful. There's so much to improve. So there's meaning everywhere. So some people say life is meaningless. I find meaning everywhere. So it's a very cool theory. Another cool thing with this theory is that it perfectly balances the generality and the particularity of what I'm saying. So I'm not telling you exactly what to improve. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you that you need to improve things in order to live meaningfully. And think about it. When we all come to a point in our life when we think, this is pointless to go on. It could be at work, in a job situation. It could be in a marriage. It could be in many kinds on a project you're working, and you're thinking, there's no more room for improvement here. It's sort of pointless to go on. Well, that proves my point. You need to feel that there's room for improvement, and there needs to actually be room for improvement in order for there to be a point to go on. So note that I have also not said what improvement is. Right? So that's fine. We need to do that another time. But I want to add towards the end now that notice that this, you might think at this point that it sounds kind of exhausting, this theory, and it sounds unfair. So it sounds like it's exhausting because there's so much to improve, so I'm going to get exhausted if I have to do all this improvement to live meaningfully. Well, you shouldn't work so hard to improve and live meaningfully that you get exhausted and burn out too soon. Because you need to worry about your life as a whole. You need to think about your whole life. You want to live an optimally meaningful life as a whole. So you don't get burned out the first couple of years. So you need to distribute your efforts wisely. Also, you might think it sounds unfair because people are born in different situations, in different circumstances, and some have a better opportunity to improve things than others. That's not a problem with the theory. That's a problem with the world. Because the world is unfair. So some people are in a less fortunate situation, and some people are in a more fortunate situation. But I think the meaning of life is the same for all of us. We need to improve something. It's just that some of us are more unlucky and some of us are more lucky than others, to be able to realize that. But I also think there's always some room for improvement, no matter what your situation is. And that room for improvement, it's more meaningful to go for that than not. So I think it's a pretty cool theory. And finally, it goes for all life, right? So my cat, the meaning of my cat's life is to improve things. But the point is my cat is in an unfortunate situation. He can't really improve much. He's really happy though. But that doesn't work either. So it's really unfortunate. But I, on the other hand, I'm unhappy, but I can improve things. So that works really well. But I think it's the same for all of us. It just goes to show that we have to look at the room for improvement, whatever our situation is. And remember, if you're in a bad situation of improvement, you are unlucky. But if you're in a good situation for improving things, the more responsibility on you. So I have a lot of responsibility compared to my cat. And this goes, from Uncle Ben says to Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm not going to tell you what improvement is, but I think we all agree that there is room for improvement out there. You don't think you live in a perfect world. And that's all my theory needs to get off the ground. And that's all you need to actually get up tomorrow morning and keep on living. It's actually the meaning of life. Improve things. Thank you.